Clearly from the listed company perspective, given the importance of the exchange and its contribution to the overall economy in Hong Kong, there is a political dimension. It is important for Hong Kong that its stock market develops the right sort of culture and standards and sustains investor confidence in the market. And corporate governance has a huge role to play in sustaining and maintaining investor confidence.
You have heard the speakers mention that corporate governance help bring the best for the organization. But can corporate governance improve behavior? Does it improve corporate performance? Last but not least, does it contribute positively to creating shareholders' value, or does it just manage risk? And is there any evidence for this? Let's hear what the guests have to say.
I think in general terms it improves performance. I think you have to define performance quite broadly though. If you define it very narrowly and just say it's ROE or it's profit, then it's often quite hard to find a direct link between better corporate governance and better ROE or profit. However, if you look at performance more broadly, not just being financial performance, but the overall efficiency of the company, the way the operations are managed internally, the way the risks are managed, then I think governance definitely leads to improved performance. I think one of the problems in corporate governance is that companies, the concepts are quite simple, or they appear to be quite simple. And I think companies often underestimate the degree of difficulty in implementing good governance. I think what I would say to a company is don't just look at governance as a set of rules and the code of best practice. If you just implement the code of best practice, that won't necessarily bring you good corporate governance. I think what I would say to them is prioritize your issues. What are the particular organizational problems you have, and how can corporate governance help to solve those? So whether it's an issue of managing risk, whether it's an issue of other internal controls, or whether you need a better board, start thinking about what are the weaknesses in your company and how corporate governance can help to resolve those, and how the tools of corporate governance can make you a more competitive and stronger company. And then to start the process of reform early, because it's always much more difficult to implement than you think, and have a strategy for doing this over, say, 5 years or even longer. If you approach corporate governance in a very practical and I think positive way like that, then I think you will get a lot out of it. If you approach it just as something, as a bunch of rules to comply with, then I guarantee you won't get very much out of it, and you'll be disappointed.
Good CG does lead to better accounting performance in terms of like corporate earning and profit, but not stock price performance. Now then, what's the reason behind it? Now we believe the old finding may not be wrongly, but because in the last several years, most fund manager and portfolio manager, investment manager, they already take into account of the importance of CG in their investment decisions. That means they no longer create a premium, because everybody, when they make the investment decisions, they already take into account of CG rating.
I believe there is plenty of empirical evidence that good governance improves corporate performance. And if you look at it in terms of total shareholder return, which is the ultimate measure of performance of companies over time, then there are plenty of studies which demonstrate that companies whose management steal from their shareholders, defraud the minorities, of course they destroy value in the process. And that's not surprising if you think that shares are normally efficiently priced on the basis of the net present value of their future earnings. Then if you take some of those earnings away by fraud, or if you increase the uncertainty of those future earnings, thereby increasing the risk factor associated with them, then the net present value in both cases will be lower and the value of the shares will go down. So certainly over time, companies with good governance are likely to outperform those with poor governance.
I think it enhances it, but I don't think anyone should be under the misapprehension that good corporate governance is automatically going to lead to good results. At the end of the day, the business performance is what's going to drive the results. Good corporate governance will help to enhance that, but I don't see it as a key driver. It certainly does help to manage and mitigate downside risk. But it does have positive aspects as well. It's perhaps sort of looking at the same thing from different angles. There are positives that do spin off from good corporate governance. Not all of them are measurable, which is the problem. It's not always possible to say this is the tangible benefit from good corporate governance. It's probably easier to see the downside and the disadvantages from bad corporate governance.
Well, intuitively, I think we all would agree that good corporate governance could lead to good corporate performance. Whether that is the case, as I said, the evidence is rather mixed. But this may be because of the way the survey is conducted. So it is difficult to say which survey is correct and whose story is right. But intuitively, we believe that there is a link, and therefore it seems important to improve corporate governance so that the corporate performance could also be improved. But that obviously isn't the only reason, because corporate governance is not only about maximizing shareholders' value. It is also about investor protection, communities' interests, employees' interests, etc.
I don't think the two are directly related. You can have companies that have very poor ideas and plans which are executed beautifully through their corporate governance. Equally, you can have companies that are very badly managed from a corporate governance perspective who have brilliant ideas that yield great returns. Hopefully somewhere in the middle you've got companies that also have great ideas and great corporate governance. So I don't think there's necessarily that direct linkage.
In the widest definition of corporate governance, it must do. If you don't have systems for information, you can't make good decisions. I think the question for which people are asking are whether the latest rules and regulations which we see around the world, say Sarbanes-Oxley, code of conducts which you see, whether they improve performance. I think you'll have to say that the jury is out on that. But I do think that when I've talked to entities, to people in charge of companies, when you talk to those who have been working on corporate governance for some time, a lot of the elements which have been codified, they are producing results.
Corporate governance, at its core, is about power and about ensuring decisions are made effectively for the benefit of its owners. In its ideal form, it is a system in which senior management and the board truly collaborate on decision-makings and regularly seek the input of their shareholders. In reality, opinion differs on what should be the content and boundaries of corporate governance. For some, it is the exercise of power by the shareholders, while for others, it is the organizational structure of the board or the corporate effectiveness that matter. Fundamentally, such views are stemmed from the conventional wisdom that directors should demonstrate their accountability to the shareholders through regular reporting and audited financial statements. But this conventional wisdom of ownership power has become inadequate. In today's corporate environment, shareholders perhaps can at best influence corporate behavior. The ultimate power always lies from the right to nominate and appoint board members. Recently, there's an increasing voice to advocate social responsibility of corporations to a wider set of stakeholders. In the following, we will look at the key players in corporate governance, and the first to share with us is Jimmy Allen.
I think the key players are regulators, managers, investors, with practitioners such as company secretaries, legal counsel, and also intermediaries such as accountants, lawyers, and investment bankers basically playing a supporting role.